Srimad Bhagavatam Raja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadasya yasa yata Janmad yasya yato nivayad itaratas charte sovigya swarat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yat Surayaha.
Tenne Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yat Suraya.
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha.
Tejo Varimidam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha.
Damna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Damna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he's independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmas.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
The original living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into
As one is
illusion.
bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Of water seen to fire with land seen to water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe.
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
appear factual although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of
I
the
meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitravocha
Dharma prajita kaitavutra
paramo nirmatsaranam satam
paramo nirmasaranam satam
vedyam vastavam atra vastu
Vedyam vastavam astra vastu
shivadam tapaha trayon mulanam
Shivadam taputrayo mulanam
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kim va purer Ishvaraha
Kimva parirish
Sadyo hridaya varudyate tra
Sadhu Rudya Varudya
Kriti bihi sususabhistakshana.
Kritivihi Shushushu Vistatyana.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths,
This Bhagavata Puran propounds the high truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in
The
the heart.
highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively, submissively hears the message of
by
Bhagavatam,
this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nikama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataror garitam phalam,
sukamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
Shukamukhar mridadrav sam,
pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Pivata Bhagavatam samalayam,
muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavukaha.
Mura horasika bhuvi bhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
The mature fruit of the desire to of Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit, the desired tree of Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this food has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Srimbantam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hidyantakstohi Abhadrani.
Vidyantastohi Abhadrani.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Surisatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad
is
Gita.
itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who's dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts as a best wishing friend,
heart, acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the body to constantly engage in hearing.
Nastaprayesu Bhadresu
Nastapaisha Bhadresu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nitam Bhagavata
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tada rajastamo bhava
kama lobhadayaschaye
kamalobhadayascha
cheta etar anavidam
cheta iteranavidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
stitam sarve prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasana manas
bhagavat bhakti yogataha
bhagavat bhakti yoga
bhagavat tattva vijnanam
bhagavat tattva vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
mukta sangasya jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure
becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the signs of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
chidyante sarva samsaya,
Chidyante sarva samsaya,
shiyante chasya karmani,
Yante chasya
krista
karmani,
evat manishware.
Krusta eva manishwari.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Samsham Samagrama,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, verse number 17. Iti smaraja dhyanavasaya yukta
Tishmarajadaya saya yukta
prachina mule sukuse sudhira
Prachina mule shulushe shudhira
udan mukto dakshina kula aste
Udan mukho dakshina kula aste
samudra patnya swaksuta nyasta baraha.
Samudra patnya swasuta nyastabara.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In perfect self-control, Maharaj Parikshit sat down on a seat of straw, with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, and he himself faced the north. Just previously, he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The river Ganges is celebrated as the wife of the sea. The seat of Kusha, straw, is considered to be sanctified if the straw is taken out of the earth, complete with root. If the root is pointed toward the east, it is considered to be auspicious. facing the north is still more favorable for attaining spiritual success. Maharaj Parikshit handed over the charge of the administration to his son before leaving home. He was thus fully equipped for all favorable conditions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we see how important, or the importance given to direction, to roots and stems and flowers of plants, and also the orientation of things, and the passation of responsibilities. So this description of the seat of Maharaj Parikshit is very important. It says that he was seated down, or he sat down on a seat of straw with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, and he himself faced north. That means that he was in full sun. When you're facing north, the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. So facing north is like that, and therefore you will see the sun all day long. Whenever you, like, if you have a house with one wall facing east, then whatever you plant on that eastern wall will grow much better, because it will have full sun during the day. And also it will imbibe the heat of the house even in wintertime, so you'll be able to grow things in winter. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that, Prabhu? Huh? A little bit. A little bit means nothing. And then with the root facing the north, I'm sorry, the straw roots were facing the east. So the kusha grass is actually vetiver, if I'm not mistaken. Vetiver, you can buy the essential oil vetiver, and you get the kusha grass in India. They have mats made of kusha grass for yogis. So just previously he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. Okay, so the seed of kusha straw is considered to be sanctified if the straw is taken out of the earth complete with root. And if the root is pointed toward the east, it is considered to be auspicious. Facing the north is still more favorable for attaining spiritual success. Maharaj Parikshit handed over the charge of administration to his son before leaving home. He was thus fully equipped for all favorable conditions. So, but one can make any situation favorable if they chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. And that's extremely important to understand. Even the most difficult or contaminated situations can become purified by sincerely chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and following the rules and regulations of Krsna consciousness, and engaging in deity worship, and regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam. So therefore, becoming a Vaishnava is far superior to being a Brahmana. If one is simply a Brahmana, they're still in the Varṇa-saṅkara system. And Brahmana is even though it's a high position, it's still a reformatory ashram, as is sannyas, which is on the Varṇa-saṅkara system. But becoming a Vaishnava is superior to all those. Therefore, when devotees describe themselves, they say Brahmana Vaishnava. They don't just say Brahmana. Or a sannyas Vaishnava. And it's very important to become a Vaishnava, because that means, see, Brahmana, anything that's within the Varṇa-saṅkara system is still controlled by the modes of material nature. But theoretically, one who's a sincere Vaishnava, not a phony, not a member of the Upper Sampradayas that claim to be Vaishnavas, but actually they don't follow strictly. But if you follow strictly and you've been properly initiated and given proper mantra by Guru, a Vaishnava Guru, then and you actually follow all the rules and regulations, and develop gradually affection and love for Krishna, then your position is transcendental to all the varnas and ashramas. And this is explained in a very interesting class that Prabhupada gave in London, July 28, 1973, on the first chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 40th verse. And the verse reads, "When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt. And from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny." Now that's not Krishna speaking, this is Arjuna speaking, this verse. And it's part of his dialogue to convince Krishna that he should not fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. That doesn't mean everything he said is wrong. Just about everything he said was right. But in that particular context, everything he said was inappropriate. So that means sometimes you can say things that are right, but they could be inappropriate depending who you're speaking to. So what we should never forget is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's not subject to the modes of material nature or anything material. And he has no material desires. All his desires are transcendental. So it's not the same as speaking to anybody else. So Prabhupada says, this is a very important point. For a good population, without good population in the society, gentlemen, cultured, educated, following the rules and regulations of religious principles, how you can expect peace and prosperity? Well, that's the problem today. There's no peace and prosperity in America, in the United States, or in Europe, or in India, or in Australia, or South America, or North America, or Canada, or no, because people are disturbed. They're worried about a pandemic. There's economic upturns and downturns. There's possibility of war. There are natural cataclysmic events. It just goes on and on. All the issues that people are dealing with. There's H-1B visa problems. There's this problem. There's that problem. Unending. So here Prabhupada says, without good population in the society, that means gentlemen or gentlewomen who are cultured, educated, following the rules and regulations of religious principles, then how can you expect peace and prosperity? That is not possible. So the whole Vedic system was meant for having very good population, not that kind of population who are addicted to killing and drinking and so many other sinful activities. No. Then you cannot check the downward spiral. And what he means is you cannot check the downward spiral of the morality and ethical behavior of people. They'll become rascals, all of them. If such population is there, then everything will be polluted. In other words, if everyone becomes a rascal, a nonsense, a sense gratifier, a lusty, angry, greedy, etc., then you cannot expect that that things will be peaceful and prosperous. Especially nowadays, because there is want of good population, what happens? They elect people who are rascals. in the government. So how can you expect good government if you're going to elect rascals and good administration? The whole population is polluted. Therefore, even such a great state as USA, the president is being tried and he's being criticized. Well, that was in the time of Nixon. But even the previous president was they tried him and they were criticizing him all the time. And probably the same thing will happen to Mr. Joe. So there must be good population. So to have good population, the women should be very chaste. That is the basic principle of Vedic civilization. And to keep the women chaste, it is the function of the responsible father, or in the absence of father, the elder brother. So he must get the woman, the girl, married. It is compulsory. There was no compulsory for a man to marry, because a man may remain brahmachari. By training, he can abstain from sex. But if woman is not protected very strictly, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. We are discussing Shastra. Don't think otherwise. Chanakya Pandit says, Vishvasam naiva kartavyam strisu raja kulesu cha. Vishvasam naiva kartavya. Don't trust women. Vishvasam naiva kartavyam strisu. Strisu means woman. Raja kula and politicians. Yes. Vishvasam naiva kartavyam strisu raja kulesu cha. Never trust a politician and woman. Of course, when woman comes to Krishna consciousness, that's different. You see, he's talking about ordinary women, or in that verse, Mamhi partavya pasritya tepi syu Papa Yonaha striya vaisas tata sudras tepi yanti param gatim. When it says that women, Vaishyas and Sudras are all low class, when it refers to women, he's talking about ordinary women who engage in sinful activities. And actually, in other places, it's more specific. He's talking about prostitutes, the most low class of women. You could never trust any of those people. And men. The Vaishyas and Sudras, they're men most of the time. They're not, and politicians. You can't trust these people. They don't have any good qualities at all. So it says, never trust a politician and woman. Of course, when woman comes to Krishna consciousness, that position is different. We are speaking of ordinary women, because Krishna says in another place, Striya Vaishyas Tata Sudra, Bhagavad Gita 9:32. They are considered women, Vaishya and mercantile community, and Sudra, and the worker class. They are less intelligent. Papa Yoni. When the progeny is defective, then they become less intelligent. So Krishna says, Mamhi partavya pasritya tepi syu Papa Yonaha striya vaisas tata sudras tepi yanti param gatim. Even Papa Yoni, degraded birth, even women, Sudras and Vaishyas, who are men, they also can become fully Krishna conscious by training. And they can also go back to home, back to Godhead, without any check, without any impediment. So what is this training that he's talking about? Training means follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. Chanting minimum 16 good rounds, no maximum. And always accepting only prasadam. No eating nonsense things. And avoiding intoxication. And gambling and speculation. All these things you have to follow. Then you get trained, and above all, regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam, spoken by genuine devotees. And that means every day. It doesn't mean, I have my Bhakti Shastri, I don't have to read anything. I got my degree, and now I'm doing my Bhakti Vaibhava, and I'll get that degree. And then I'll do my Bhakti Vedanta, I'll get that degree. No, it doesn't matter that you have these degrees. You still have to hear and chant every day. Because what is our disease? Our disease is we forget. We forget things. We might know them because we studied a lot for a test and passed the test. But after you pass the test, you start forgetting. Like oftentimes, let's say you go in for a meeting to get a job in Amazon, and they're going to question you. Do you know this? Do you know that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they start asking you questions about things that you studied when you were in college, but obviously you forgot about it. You didn't need all those things, and they were just technical things, but you got trained on the job to do specific things. So the meeting doesn't go well because they're asking you things that you forgot about, or they're hazy in your mind. You'd have to go back and restudy it. Just like I got an A in calculus several times, advanced calculus. But if you asked me the same questions that I answered 50 years ago on those tests, I probably wouldn't be able to answer any of them. And then I studied differential equations. If you asked me some questions about differential equations today, I wouldn't be able to answer them. I forgot about it. I never used that knowledge, right? But, you go in for your tests in Amazon or these other companies, they'll start asking you questions about things you studied 20 years ago, and you forgot them, or they're not clear in your mind. So in the same way, our disease is forgetfulness. Therefore, this constant hearing and chanting in the association of devotees is absolutely important. So Prabhupada says that, so when we study things from material point of view, these things are to be taken care of. In other words, you have to be careful, because from the material point of view, you can't say, we shouldn't study the material point of view. We should only study the spiritual point of view. No. Just like in Ishopanishad, it says that one should study both, sat and asat. Because if you don't understand what asat is, then you'll be tricked by it. So, what is that verse? That verse is... It's the ninth mantra of the Ishopanishad, and of course, nasato vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate sata, ubayor api dristo natas tvaneos tattvadarshana. So, therefore, one should understand what is eternal, which is never any cessation, and what is temporary, which is never has any duration. Or, as it says in Bhagavad Gita, Ishopanishad, mantra 9. Let's see what that says. Andam tamaha pravishanti. No, that's not it. Which one is it? Okay, I'll come back to this. Anyway, so we should study sat and asat, not simply spiritual knowledge. Vidyam cha yastad veda bayam suha avidyaya militam tritva vidyayam mritam asnute. Only one who can learn the process of ignorance and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So, we have to learn what are the pitfalls in material nature and material life that could be serious obstacles on our path of progressive Krishna consciousness. Just like yesterday we studied what Sadananda Yogindra, he gave a commentary on Sankaracharya's Sarirak Bhasya, and he called his thing Vedanta Sar. But the Vedanta Sar actually is a deviation, serious deviation from Sankaracharya's final teachings. And in that, and we learned all the word jugglery yesterday that Sadananda Yogendra used to establish this atheistic, asuric, demoniac Mayavad philosophy. So, therefore, it says here, the Arjuna is speaking of ordinary women, strisu dustasu, just like adharma abhibhava, adharma. If a woman is trained, a girl is trained from the very beginning that you should remain chaste, that is dharma. It is called satita dharma. Sati means chastity. There are many stories of sati, chaste women. For example, Nala and Damayanti. Nala, or the husband of Damayanti, became poverty-stricken. He was a king, but he became later on so poverty-stricken that he had no sufficient cloth. The husband and wife were putting on the same cloth, half and half. They cut one piece of cloth in half. So still, there was no divorce. You see? Still the woman did not consider. She was also a king's daughter, but the husband had fallen down to so much poverty-stricken condition, so why shall I live with him? These are some of the extreme examples of chastity. She didn't reject her husband just because he lost all his wealth. Not to speak of olden days. I have seen in Bombay, now Prabhupada's talking about his own personal experience, in 1935 or 34, on the roadside, there was a beggar. The beggar, his face was defaced. He must have had an accident. His eyes and everything became defaced. He could not see. Everything became useless. So he was sitting on the roadside, and his wife also was sitting next to him. But I saw that the beggar was neat and clean. The wife was also neat and clean. The wife's business was to keep the husband always neat and clean and fresh, and bring him there and again take him home. And she was a young woman. So I can understand that the wife, his wife, was so chaste. She did not leave such an ugly husband because his face was defaced, and helping him because they require some money. So I saw this. There are many stories of chaste women, many stories. There was one disciple of Ramanujacharya, the disciple was very poor. So Ramanuja came to the poor disciple's house, and there was no one in the house. So he thought, what is this? This is my disciple's house. He's family man. Why there's no one here? That means he could understand that the door is not locked. The door was closed only. Then he could understand that within the door, the man's wife was there. Therefore, he knocked on the door, and there was no response. He didn't like open it and go in, right? He knocked on the door. And he could understand that within the door, the man's wife was there. Therefore, he knocked on the door, and there was response. The woman said something, and he continued knocking, but she could not come out. That means that she was so poor that she had no garment. In other words, she was naked. She didn't have any clothes. She was keeping herself within the room naked. So Ramanujacharya could understand that there is his wife, maybe she has no sufficient clothing. So immediately, his own cloth he gave her within the room. And a woman came out putting on that cloth and then offered obeisances. So he could understand the position. They were very, very poor. So poor that they did not even have clothing. So after putting on the cloth, she went to the so this is a story. I've told this story before. You might probably know it also. But there was a village. Now, Ramanujacharya was traveling around with 1,000 disciples, 700 sannyasis, and 300 women. He was the most prominent of all the Sri Vaishnava acharyas. And he would travel with 1,000 devotees, village to village. So he visited this one village where he had 2 disciples. One was a very rich businessman, and one was this very poor Brahmana. So the very rich businessman had prepared a big, opulent feast for Ramanujacharya and all his disciples. But the poor Brahmana couldn't prepare anything. He didn't have any money at all. He hardly had even any clothing. So Ramanujacharya, when he arrived in that village, the rich man came to see him, but he spoke to his disciples, and he said, Maharaj is coming to my house. I made a big festival and big feast for him. But when they asked Ramanujacharya, he said, no, I'm not going to go there. And he said, I'm going to go to this other Brahman's house. So when he goes to the Brahman's house, the Brahman is not there. The wife is there, but she's naked. She doesn't have any clothes. And he knocks on the door, and she says that she cannot come to the door. So he understands all these things, that they're very poor. The wife is so poor that she's naked. That's why she can't open the door. So he closes his eyes and opens the door slightly and gives his chadar. And she puts the chadar on, opens the door, and then she gives her obeisances to Ramanujacharya. And he can understand that they were very, very poor. So after putting on the cloth, and she begs Ramanujacharya, please sit down, bring your disciples, and I'll be back in a short while. And she goes to a grocer. Now, she was actually an attractive woman, and every time she would go to the grocer when they had a little bit of money, the grocer would always try and seduce her, and she would always resist. This time she goes to the grocer and she said, I need a lot of things. I need ghee and these vegetables and these spices. I have to make a big feast for my Gurudev. And I'll do whatever you want me to do. After the feast is over, I'll come to you. You can do whatever you want with me. So he became very happy. The grocer became happy. And he gives her whatever she wants. He said, take whatever you want. And she goes back and she cooks a big feast. And she's serving everyone, and her husband comes, and he's just amazed. And he gives it, he pays his obeisances to Ramanujacharya, and then he helps her serve everyone, and he asks her, said, where'd you get all this from? She said, I'll tell you later on. So later on, she tells him what she did, and the husband does not get angry, but he said, look, before you do anything, we have to tell Gurudev. So she says, okay, it's very embarrassing though. So they go to him afterwards and they explain. And he said, yes, I understand. He said, you take some of my prasad to the house of the grocer. And when you go there to satisfy his desire, you ask him to take some of the prasad. So the husband and wife both go. And when the grocer opens the door and sees the husband, he's not very pleased. But the husband says, please don't worry. I personally brought my wife to you so that you can enjoy her. And we want to thank you very much. And also, we have brought you some of the prasadam of our Gurudev Ramanujacharya. Please take this. So the grocer says, okay. And he eats a little bit of the prasadam. And then he's just thinking, what is this? The man's coming with his wife. He's giving her to me. He's a Brahmana. And all of a sudden, little by little, he has a change of mentality. And he apologizes and says, you're such good people. I feel very, very embarrassed about my lusty desires and so forth. And basically, he frees the woman, does not want to abuse her, and eventually he does meet Ramanujacharya also. So Prabhupada is telling this story, at least part of it, and so he says, Now this woman went to the grocer's shop, and she said to the grocer, "You know I am very poor. I require immediately some grains, ghee, and other things. My Guru Maharaj has come at home. I must receive him. So tonight I agree with your proposal. Please give me these things. Even at the sacrifice of my charity, I want this. Even at the sacrifice of my chastity, I want this." So the grocer was very glad. Oh, this woman, I have canvassed her. I have tried to induce her. She never agreed, and now she's agreeing. So, all right, you take whatever you like. Take. So she was given all kinds of food, grains, as much as she wanted, and she cooked and gave to the spiritual master and his associates, his servants. Everything was very nice. In the meantime, the husband came, working whole day, and he saw everything. It was nicely done, and Guru Maharaj is fed, and his associates, they're fed. So he asked his wife, "How did you get all these things?" And she narrated the whole story. Then the husband also said, "Yes, you have promised, all right, take some prasadam and go to him. But you have promised to meet him this evening, so go." Then the grocer heard the whole story, and his mind became changed. Oh, such a chaste woman, such a faithful woman. The whole story and his mind became changed. And you are like my mother, he said to her. You take more ingredients, grains, as much as you like. And so Prabhupada says, still, that is not very long ago when this happened. So this was the training that people had. And the psychology is that the woman, the first man she meets, and if she is kept carefully, she becomes staunch lover. This is psychology. There is good psychology in maintaining the society. Therefore, a woman, especially in India, especially in Bengal, before attaining puberty, she was married. She doesn't meet her husband until she actually attains puberty. But she remained at the father's house, but she must know that I am married. I have got husband. This is psychology. Then she becomes very chaste because she thinks of her husband and becomes more and more devoted. So this arrangement that woman must be married before puberty, or even after puberty she must get a husband, and so this is dharma. It is called kanya daya. Kanya daya means it is very obligatory that the father must get the daughter married. This is dharma. So if this dharma or this religious principle is violated, just like Arjuna is saying, adharma abhibhava. When people become neglectful of the family tradition and religious principles, adharma abhibhava, Krishna pradusyanti kulastriya. Bhagavad Gita 1.40. Kulastriya. Kulastriya means, kula means family, and striya means woman. So woman must be belonging to a respectable family. Therefore it is said kulastriya. Not society girls, kulastriya of the family. We have got experience in our school, college days. I was sitting in a friend's house, and one sweeper woman with a broomstick came, and she had her hair covered with a shawl, and she was standing about 20 yards distant from our sitting place. So I asked my friend, "Your sweeper woman wants to come in. She's waiting because we are sitting here. She is ashamed to come. So let us move so that she can go beyond us or go past us." So we stood separately. That means although she was a sweeper woman, still we had to honor her entrance. We stood up separately. She was feeling that, how can I go between two men? This we have seen in our life. So this is Vedic culture. Woman should not be allowed to mix with man. Not allowed. In Japan also, the same system. Before marriage, they can mix, but after marriage, they cannot mix. In Japan also, I have seen. But in India, still the system is there. Woman without husband cannot talk with any man. That is also psychological. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that man is like ghee, or like a butter pot, and woman is like fire. Therefore, as soon as there is fire and butter pot, the butter pot becomes melted. Therefore, they should be kept aside. These are the statements, and the Shastra says that in a solitary place you should not remain even with your daughter, even with your sister, even with your mother. Even Papa Yoni, degraded birth, no, I'm sorry. Sorry. Either your mother or sister or daughter. No, people become lusty. Nobody becomes lusty with mother or sister or daughter. But Shastra says even your mother or sister or daughter, you should not live in a solitary place. Then one may question that, how is it possible? No, the Shastra says, Balavam Indriya Grama. The senses are so strong that it becomes polluted. Now it may be some rascal fools may be polluted like that. No, Shastra, Vidvam Apikarsati, even the most learned, he can be polluted. So sometimes in India, I am criticized that I keep women and men in the same temple. In India, that is not allowed. No women can live at night in the temple. They come and go. But I defend myself that this is the system of the country. In some Western countries, women and men, they intermingle. How can I check it? Then the women, shall I not give them any chance for chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa? No. I shall do this, I shall take this chance. I shall give this opportunity to women, even at the risk. This is my reply. So therefore, you see Prabhupada made an adjustment that it's not there in India. Well, it wasn't there before in India. But he took that risk in the United States and then in Europe in order to spread the movement. So therefore, chastity is a very, very important thing for producing good population, nice population. So unless the population is good, if the population becomes hippies, then how can there be any peace and prosperity? Prabhupada gave a definition of a hippie. He said a hippie is someone who can perform great austerity, no eating, no sleeping, no bathing, he said. But one thing they can't do, they can't stop sex. And that is actually a fact. Therefore, to produce children, there is samskara. First samskara is Garbadhana Samskara. That is called Kula Dharma, or family dharma. Garbadhana Samskara means when, especially the high caste, Brahmana and Kshatriya especially, not Śūdra. Śūdra has no samskara. Only the higher class, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. Vaishya also sometimes no samskara. But Brahmana and Kshatriya must have samskara. Dasa Vidha Samskara, 10 kinds of samskaras. One of the samskara means purificatory method. One of the samskara is also marriage. One must get married. So before the child is given birth, there is samskara that is called Garbadhana Samskara. It is not that the husband and wife mix without any restriction and have sex life at any time. No. You know that mother of Hiranyakashipu, her husband Kashyapa Muni, I think was the father. So the woman became very much sexually excited. So he had more than two wives, but the two principal wives were Deity and Aditi. Aditi is the mother of the devas, and Deity is the mother of the demons. So he says, the woman became very much sexually excited, and the husband replied, "This is not time. This is not the right time. This is very bad time. Evening. Why you are insisting?" But she was too much lusty, and because the husband was obliged, Hiranyakashipu was born. A demon was born. Therefore, there is Garbadhana Samskara to find out when the husband and wife should mix and give birth to a child. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see that sex life, which is according to the principle of religious ideas, that is I am. In other words, Krishna says, I am sex life according to religious principles. Dharma viruddha bhutesu kamosmi bharatarsabha. So sex life is not bad, provided it is executed according to the religious principles. So Garbadhana Samskara. Now what is the idea? The idea is the child born must be first class. He'll be able to become Krishna conscious. He'll be able to understand the Shastras, the Vedas. He must have the good brain. These were the ideas. But if they are not born in that way, with Garbadhana Samskara, like cats and dogs, that is called Varṇa-saṅkara. Varṇa-saṅkara. You cannot specify whether he is Brahmana or Kshatriya, Vaishya or Śūdra. That is called Varṇa-saṅkara. So Varṇa-saṅkara population is not good. Varṇa-saṅkara. No caste, no designation, no definition to which class this man belongs. So that's the situation today. Mostly, for sure, in the Western world, and even India, and even China, and Japan, all these places, the whole system has collapsed. And there might be some exceptions, but the mass of the population, the system has collapsed. In the Christian world, in the Muslim world, and everywhere. So at the present moment, because these purificatory processes are not accepted, even in India, therefore, everything is topsy-turvy. Therefore, the Shastra says, accept everyone as Sudra. Kalo Sudra Sambhava. There is no more Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya. All Sudras. We have to accept. Because no Vedic culture, no Garbadhana Samskara. Garbadhana Samskara, of course, is preparation for sex, or spiritual sex, to have good children. And there's a whole ceremony and chanting and a lot of different things that have to be done. They are born like cats and dogs today. So where is this division of society? There cannot be. Therefore, accept them all as Sudras. Varṇa-saṅkara is less than Sudra, so at least Sudra they should be. So there is no Vedic diksha. For Sudra, there's no diksha. There's no initiation. Initiation is meant for persons who are born in Brahmana family, Kshatriya family, or Vaishya family. The Sudra has no initiation. So in India, there are professional gurus. They initiate Sudras, but do not eat foodstuff touched by the disciple. So there are so many things that if he is initiated, how can he remain Sudra? But they keep him Sudra at the same time, and they become Guru. Sanatana Goswami gives direction in Hari Bhakti Vilasa that Tata Diksha Vidanena Dvijatam Jayate Nrinam. If properly initiated, the disciple becomes immediately Brahmana. Dvijatvam. Dvija means second birth. Yata Kanchanatam. Yati Kamsyam Rasa Vidanata. There is a chemical process that kamsya, bell metal, can be turned into gold by mixing with a proportion of mercury. So here is a hint of chemistry. If anyone can prepare gold, but it is very difficult to mix with mercury. As soon as there is a little heat, immediately the mercury is finished. So there is a process. Everything has process. Many yogis know how to make gold from copper. Actually, chemically, copper, tin, and mercury. If you mix proportionately, it will be gold. So Sanatana Goswami gives this example. As the copper and tin, these two metals mixed with mercury, there can be production of gold. Similarly, by proper initiation, by the proper spiritual master, one Sudra, even though he's Sudra, or less than Sudra, Varṇa-saṅkara or Chandala, he can become Dvija or Brahmana. So our process is to make Dvija or Brahmanas. Pancharatrikividi, that is recommended. Shruti Smriti Purana Adim Pancharatra Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatayaiva Kalpate. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12101. Rupa Goswami gives this direction that the initiation must be done according to Shruti, Smriti, or Pancharatriki Vidi. There is Nyaya Prasthana, Shruti Prasthana, and Smriti Prasthana. So 3 types of spiritual authority. To make spiritual progress in the 3 ways, by the Vedanta philosophy or Vedic ways, or according to Smriti and Shruti, means authorized books written in accordance to the Shruti. Smriti means authorized books written according to Shruti. Shruti and Smriti, just like Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is not directly Vedas, but all the stanzas of Bhagavad Gita, they're strictly according to the Nyaya Prasthana and Shruti Prasthana. So any book which is strictly written according to the Vedas and Vedanta, that is also accepted as Vedic literature. So Pancharatrikividi means that it doesn't matter whether a man is Sudra or Chandala. Chandala means less than Sudra. Panchama, the 5th grade. 1st class, Brahmana. 2nd class, Kshatriya. 3rd class, Vaishya. 4th class, Sudra. And below this 4th class, there's Chandalas. Chandalas means panchama, untouchable. They are called untouchable. So even the untouchables, because Krishna has said, Mam hi partavya pasritya yepisyu Papa Yonaha, Bhagavad Gita 9:32. The Papa Yoni, Chandala means Papa Yoni, born of low-grade family. The Bhagavata says, Sukadeva Goswami says that Kirata Hunindra Pulindra Pulkasa Abira Samba Yavana Kasadaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 2:4-18. Yavana, Malecha, Yavana, they are called, they are counted amongst the Chandalas. Yene Chapapa, even lower than that. Yene Chapapa Sudayanti. They become purified also. How? Prabhavishnave Namaha, when they are initiated to become Krishna conscious. So, one may argue, how is it possible to make a Chandala a Vaishnava? No, that is possible. Prabhavishnave Namaha. Vishnu is so powerful, omnipotent, he can do that. So only by Vishnu mantra, by becoming a Vaishnava, one can transcend all these restrictions, all sociology. They can be. That is confirmed by Krishna. Mam Chabya Bicharini Bhakti Yogena Yasevate Sagunam Brahmatityaitam Brahmabhuyaya Kalpate. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Immediately he transcends. He's in the Brahman platform. One who has taken very seriously this devotional service, he's no more on this material platform. You see, so what did Prabhupada do? He makes a comparison of the degraded Brahminical standard now, where some Brahmanas accept to initiate Sudras, but they will not touch the food that their Sudra disciple cooks. And make all these type of crazy rules and regulations that are completely ashastric. There's no shastra behind it. But Vaishnavism is different. It's transcendental to being a Brahmana. The Brahmanas make all these phony rules up. But Vaishnavas follow Nyaya, Prasthana, and Shruti Prasthana, and Smriti Prasthana, rules and regulations given by the Acharyas. So the Vaishnavas can take an Adama, the lowest class person, and make him Uttama, first class person, if they're willing to be trained. Now, are we willing to be trained? That's the question. So after initiation, one should strictly follow all the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, such as coming regularly to class every day, such as waking up early every day, such as chanting minimum 16 good rounds every day, and so forth. We have to follow strictly. That means that we're agreed to be trained, and the training is ongoing. It's not, well, before I get initiated, I have to do the disciple course, and I have to read Prabhupada's Lilamrita, and I have to read Ishopanishad, and I have to read this book and that book, and I passed all those, and I got initiated. Now I'm going to take it easy. No, that's just the beginning of spiritual life. Initiation is the beginning, and the continuity is now you must do all these things. Wake up early, take a bath, at least 1 or 2 baths or 3 baths a day, and chant a minimum 16 good rounds, and all these things you have to do, and hear the class, and so forth, and bow down to the deities, and you can also engage in worshiping the deities, and deity service, and this thing and that thing, Sankirtan, and prasadam distribution. You have to do all these things. The minimum is 16 rounds, and strictly follow the 4 regulative principles, which includes hearing every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is training, and the training is ongoing. It's not that it only lasts until initiation, and after initiation I don't have to be trained anymore. It's ongoing. Otherwise, a person will deviate, because our disease is forgetfulness. Okay, so then Prabhupada quotes the words, Mam chayo vibicharini bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who always engages in devotional service and does not fall down under any circumstance, sagunam samatityaitan. They come at once to the stage of transcendental life above the influence of the modes of material nature. So therefore, that's why the training must be ongoing, because it's very easy to forget things or become negligent. People fall down because of being negligent, not chanting 16 good rounds a day, not always waking up early and coming to Mangal Arati, not doing this, not doing that. Slippery slope. Eventually, a person is out the door, back into karmi life. So our point of view is not to become a first-class prisoner, to get out of the prison. That's our goal. Not to take birth on the heavenly planets and enjoy enhanced sense gratification. That's not our goal. That is Vaishnava vision. Last night, I have given comments that Madhavendra Puri, he was performing the Anakuta ceremony and installing the deity. So everything was being Brahminically done by Brahmanas, qualified Brahmanas. But Madhavendra Puri initiated them again to become Vaishnavas. So in other words, the village Brahmanas came with the villagers with food to offer to the deity, a Gopal deity. But Madhavendra Puri had to leave. He had to go to Orissa to get sandalwood for his deity, because it was very hot in UP or Rajasthan, wherever it was UP. So he had to train these Brahmanas to become Vaishnavas so they could worship the deity. You see? So it's not that Brahmanas are the top of the society. They're definitely prominent. But in order to worship the Krishna deity properly, you have to be a Vaishnava, not simply a Brahmana. Right? So then he gave them in charge of the deity worship, because he initiated them as Vaishnavas. So the Vaishnava functions cannot be done even by a Brahmana. Even one is qualified Brahmana, he is unfit to propagate Vaishnava philosophy. That is stated in the Shastras. Satkarma Nipuno Vipro, Mantra Tantra Visarada, a Vaishnavo Gurur Nasyat, Vaishnava Swapako Guru. I'm sure maybe some people would disagree with this even in this temple. But how can you disagree with what Prabhupada says? So, Swapako means Chandala, who is eating dog. That is considered the lowest. There are different kinds of meat eaters, but in India, the cow flesh eaters, there are none. Well, he says there were none, but there are today, unfortunately. Some of them were eating hogs, even dogs, so this is in previous time. No government will allow to eat the cow flesh. No, that is not allowed. If you want to eat flesh, you can eat hogs and dogs and other, like goats also. But you cannot touch a cow. This is restriction. First of all, they should not be meat eater. But if you are a staunch meat eater, then you cannot touch cow. You can eat some other animal. So swapaka means the dog eaters. In Korea and some parts there, they eat dogs. They sell dog flesh publicly. So in India also there is a class. In Assam they eat also, I think he's probably talking about Assam. Partha can tell us if this is true or not. He says they eat dogs. So the dog eaters, they are considered lowest of mankind. So even this Chandala, this lowest class of people, they can also become Vaishnava, strictly according to the orders, meaning the rules and regulations. Then he can become Guru, but not a Brahmana. If he's not a Vaishnava, so in other words, Brahmana cannot become a Guru or cannot worship the deity unless he becomes a Vaishnava. But even the Chandala part, you have dog eaters in Assam? Huh? They sell dog meat in Assam? Oh, Nagaland. That's part of Assam? Next to it. Okay. Okay, so Prabhupada continues. We'll stop in a minute. You ready for the... No. All right, we'll stop there. The best part is coming, but you'll have to wait till tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.